Oh, that's definitely not good. Uh-oh. Now, last episode, I built a train. That's right, a huge train, actually. I don't think I've ever built one this sort of scale, nor have I built one this sort of realistic. Well, yeah, I've built a lot of goofy-looking trains. But with this train, I can now choo-choo around the entire base and do it very, very quickly. But the main goal of this train is to have automation set up. And so, we did find an area that has bees pretty much ready to go, and that would be something fantastic to sort of automate in another location, is to essentially have some bees set up, and that way we can harvest combs, and we can also harvest the actual honey from the bees themselves. And I think that's going to be great. The ability to be able to basically keep our copper from turning into, well, green blocks sounds like a good idea to me. And so today, we actually get to take our current train and extend upon it and actually add the logistical functionality that, well, is the whole reason for the project. So how exactly do we add to this? Well, to add cars that will technically be connected via cable, we just have to add some bogies to the back of this and make sure it's not actually glued to the main contraption. So that sounds pretty straightforward, right? So all we have to do is, for example, have a bogie right here. And we don't have to add anything other than this. We just have to add a block that is glued to this. For example, we can put this on top of here. And then we just need to make sure that it is considered a contraption. And I should be able to complete the train. Well, I think we have to have like items actually glued to it. For example, like this. But as soon as we have this all set up, then there we go. Now we have a train car, and notice it is actually linked via a cable just like this. So we can continue to add train cars, and we can actually have our bogies hooked together. For example, this bogie, being a pretty small one, isn't like too crazy looking, but we can actually connect multiple bogies together. So what if we have two of these here, and then we make this a singular train car by just making sure that we have this linked together? I think that's a pretty cool idea. However, I would prefer these to be maybe split a little bit further so they are a 3x3 in the center. And there's a reason for that, because we're going to be using interfaces. And there are some reasons to keeping things sort of even looking with the interfaces. It's just going to make setting up our train stations down the road for our automations a little bit simpler. Now we're going to be dealing with items, and we're also going to be dealing with fluids. And we could get away with doing this on one train car, because the way that this system works is this contraption, this all one big contraption, counts as all basically one inventory, which that has a kind of a downside when you're starting to play around with the trains. Because what if you want to send like multiple items, like fluids, different fluids, and also different things like that? Well, that's where you have to use either your schedule, which we're going to be getting into in a minute, to actually limit how many items can go in and out, or you have to do it externally via some of the create redstone. And yeah, it can get kind of complicated when you start dealing with that. But you got to keep in mind, this whole thing, no matter how many train cars we add, is all considered as one central contraption. Now, I found that turning these into the large wheels allows me to make a much more interesting looking train car, because I can actually add sort of like a wheel well. And I think these like sort of wheel wells make this look a lot better, because I don't know, it feels weird having like items or blocks like clipping in to the actual train wheels. It just would be impossible in reality. I know it's a game, but still, in building concepts, it does still feel also weird when you have items sort of clipping through things that really you shouldn't be doing that. Now on the top here, I'm going to be using these copycat blocks, but I think to be able to get them in the position that I want, I am going to need a block basically placed on top. So yes, to get these copycats in position, I'm just going to go ahead and add things like this. So yeah, I'm going to have a fluid cart and an item cart, at least for right now. And then later on, we could potentially add more carts, but like we can add a power cart. I think there's a way for us to actually transfer power from our station here to somewhere else, and then that transferred power basically would act as like a charge that would basically be turned into create rotational power and kind of sending create rotation wirelessly. Now on the train cars, I wanted to make them not only look good, but also be functional. So there are a bunch of inventories here, and all of these inventories in this contraption will actually count towards the inventory. So we do have item vaults, we have barrels, we have chests, and then over here we also have tanks. Now I'm pretty sure these create decor tanks should work inside the contraption, and I'm not though sure about the engineer's decor, but I do know the create tanks will actually hold the fluids. But I'm not sure. I've never mixed the fluids, so I don't know how these actually work if you start to maybe utilize more than one fluid. Like, what if we want later on, along with our honey, to also include, I don't know, lava, for example? We'd kind of have to figure that out. But either way, this is pretty much ready to go. I just need to glue these together, kind of, because there is one more thing that I need to do. I actually need to add the interfaces, and this is how we're going to actually interact with the contraption. And so what I'm going to do for the items is I'm going to put an item interface connected right here on this side, and also one on the other side, just in case later on down the road, if we want to interact with something on the other side, we can. And so I'm going to do that also for the fluid using a fluid interface. So there's going to be one over here, just like this, and one on the other side. So we have both sides of the train that we could also interact with. And now I get to glue the thing together. Now at the moment of truth, I've got everything glued together, and so I get to hit the button to do the thing, and I hope that everything was glued together. So there it is. Now we've got to take it on a journey. Ooh, I do not like, you know what? I might actually change this, and instead of doing regular vanilla chests, I might see if there's some other kind of storage that I can put in the place of these chests, because I don't like that it darkens them. It's just kind of a rendering thing that happens with some items. So yeah, I'm going to exchange these out. And there we go. I decided to go with a bundle of potatoes and carrots. Yeah, I know it's not a storage, but it is going to look very nice whenever I get this fully assembled. And there we go. So now we have a train car for items and a train car for fluids. And well, we should give this a little bit of a drive, because I'm wanting to see how this actually looks. Oh, and it just looks so good when we take corners. Oh, we actually just now have a functional train. I absolutely love this. This is what it's all about. When you get into the trains, it's something nice, something different. Oh, it's so good. Okay, so, it does look like we did miss a few things. So this is something to note when something like this definitely happens. Yeah, notice those items definitely got left. So I've got to go back and make sure I glue those in. So now with the train done, I think it's time we head back over to where our bees are located. And well, we start working on that area and getting everything automated and start the process of sending it to the train. And then we need to figure out, well, how we're going to manage those items from this main base as well. Yes, this is a huge project, even though it may not seem like it. Going from one location to another with Create does take a lot of time and a lot of effort, but I think it's going to be well worth it. Now, back at the B area, I have extended the track and added a loop into the track. And so an interesting way that you can kind of loop is you can extend off 45 degrees, and I recommend counting from the center here about 11 blocks out. And then you can have that 45 go straight to that 11th block. And then do the same thing for the other side, and that will get you a nice circular area here that will have a pretty decent center point. Another way you can do this is by creating just a straight line that then branches off and creates a big circle. But if you want to kind of keep things in sort of a center area like this, then you can do something like this. Like I said, there's a multitude of ways that you could go about doing this, but yeah, here's a loop. Now, if you don't want to loop, you could technically have your train go backwards. If you had like a single car, you just need to put 2 train controls, and then you can do that. It's though a little bit weird. Now, if it's just like a singular train, just without any cars, it makes a lot more sense to kind of do that. But whenever you have train cars, doesn't make as much sense. Now, I want to play around with some things. Now, as of right now, I can use shears with a deployer on this nest, for example. And I don't think I need a campfire. From my testing so far, it doesn't seem like I actually need a campfire in order for this to work. But I did notice some weird behavior around this. So if I actually do this and I use a deployer on this and it harvests, notice there's nothing underneath it. They should not get mad at me, but something else very weird happens. The combs didn't go anywhere, but they're in here in some weird capacity. Like I have a couple of combs here, but let's go ahead and get a funnel, right? Like a brass funnel, for example, and let's see if we can't get the shears out. Now the shears did go out of here, but if I break this, the honeycombs were also in there somehow. I have no idea how that works, but it does. Now, interestingly enough, I did find a way around this, and it seems very weird, but I have a smart chute under here with a honeycomb listed as a filter, so you're not pulling out the shear. And so what seems to happen here is it goes into the deployer's inventory somehow, and then the honeycombs are being able to be pulled out, in which we do have them right here. So very interesting, but I can use this. I can actually kind of use this to my advantage, I think. So if I have my deployers kind of on the side like this, that actually kind of helps me a little bit, because then I can just drop the items onto a conveyor belt that actually runs under here, under the entire area, and I don't have to worry about anything. And we can not create conveyor belts, but we can actually use some other kind of conveyor belts like the ones from Immersive Engineering. Now this is going to end up powering everything because we don't really need a whole lot of rotational power. I just wanted to go ahead and on the side here add some water wheels, and then this is going to allow me to pull the power and send it to this machine, and also the one on the other side, and potentially more if I want to add more later on. So now I have laid out a little bit of power running from here. There's also some shafts that run under the ground, and then also I ran a shaft that runs down here into some cogs. And so this is all nice and spinning and is all nice and automated. Now I don't have the items going anywhere just yet, and that's because I really need to get my train kind of over here first before I really decide where exactly I want to set like my item vault that I'm going to use to store honeycombs, and where I actually want, for example, these tanks to potentially be storing fluid. I don't think we're going to be producing enough honey to really worry about adding a huge buffer for the honey tanks, but definitely when it comes to honeycombs, I just don't want the items to sort of overflow. Even though we could technically solve that with a little bit of redstone, I do want to make sure that I know exactly where the deposit areas are going to be, because we're going to have to send those items into our contraption. And same with our fluid. So I'm going to get my train over here so we can kind of make that decision. So through the Nether I go, and this is going to cause a little bit of a problem as we go through it. It is going to send the whole train over here. It takes a little bit of time. I am going to have to re-engage my controls, and then I can continue on. And yes, this will be a pretty quick journey because these trains are incredibly fast. So going through this dimension, it should have no problem. Also, if we had some sort of burnable material, for example, coal, or if we had like, like coal or wood in our inventory, it should go even faster. And yes, we will be able to go through here. Notice I took damage. That is kind of a problem. Oh, that's definitely not good. Uh-oh. Where's our train cars? Hold up a minute. It just straight up deleted our train cars. That cannot be good. I'm going to go back through the Nether and see if this kind of corrects itself potentially. But that's not good at all, actually. I wouldn't even know how to fix this. Our train cars are just gone? Oh, thank goodness. They are here. Oh goodness, I was a little worried there for a moment. Now thankfully this gives me a chance to show you that you can reorient your trains. If you just go ahead and right click with a wrench, I should be able to then turn my train around by looking in this direction and then placing my train down. So this should completely reorient my train, and there we go. So now we can hop back in and try this again. We shouldn't encounter this problem. I think this is just a problem with us being on this going through the dimension. It's not so good with you being on the train doing this whole process. So yeah, let's see. Please, train cars. Okay, good. So now that we have our train cars here, we can get a better idea of where we actually are going to need to set up our our actual interfaces and where we want to set up our interfaces and also set up our train station, because all of that determines where we need to position things. So let's hop out of here real quick and just take a look. So I think the best thing to do would be to have our fluid going in here, but we're getting a little close. Yeah, we're getting a little close to here. So maybe it's not too bad to have like the middle of the train be right here, and we just sort of split things off. We'll have all of the items build up into a vault that's over here, and then the vault can just send the items into an interface. And that seems pretty reasonable. So speaking of interfaces, so what we're going to need to do is make sure we have a single gap basically in between this interface, just like this. And then I'm going to place like my fluid interface right here. And notice they are linked together right now. And then this is also going to give me an idea of where we need to put our train station. Now, typically the train station needs to be underneath your central bogie. So our first bogie right here, this is where we want our train station. So I can go ahead and get that placed in, and I want it facing in this direction. And I'm just going to set it right here for right now. And then we're going to call this the bees for right now. And now this is a train station. So the best thing that we can do is to hop back into our train and then make sure it's aligned perfectly with this station. So interestingly enough, it is actually not aligned properly. So I'm going to need to move it one more forward, and this will take some trial and error. This is just part of it. And I'm going to move it right here, and that's where my train station is going to be. And so I can rename this back to bees. Perfect. So I guess underneath the first wheel seems like the best place to put it. And then I'm going to get my train located right back on that bogie so we can start to build all of our stuff around this. So you can see I can hold it, and perfect. Now we are aligned and we should be right where we need to be. Making sure. There we go. And if I pop out of here, for some reason my train is all a little wonky there. Perfect. Now we should be able to see exactly where we're located. Yes, perfect. It's perfectly aligned. And the middle of this is also right here in the center of the carriage. Perfect. So now with that set up, it should be pretty straightforward for me to go ahead and set up a pump that is going to end up making its way into here. And so probably the best way to do that is have the pump go up and just have the pump carry this in to this area, just like that. So a nice little pipe that's going over here. And then that's going to flow into this once we get this pump powered, which I should be able to do with just a gearbox. And as soon as that is working, this will start to fill up the containers in that inventory. And that should be pretty straightforward. Well, actually, we can probably get that going right now if I just simply give this some power. So I just simply need a gearbox there, and boop, perfect. So yes, we should start to notice as fluid starts to flow through this from our tanks, it should start to fill our tanks over here, and we'll see that as soon as this makes its way all the way through it. So there we go. We see the honey building up in our train, and perfect. Now we've just got to figure out our item routing. Now for this, I've decided to use a item vault that is up top here, and I have it looking like it's being supported. And then I have a chute. Now I need to get a belt line that is basically going to route these items through. And so this is going to involve quite a bit of the engineer's hammer because I want the items, if I can go ahead and teleport up here, I basically want the item vault to be filled up like this. So if I drop an item in here, it's going to end up going into that belt. And so I've got to sort of build a bridge per se that is going to link these items and sort of swirl around. Actually, you know what? I decided to use a vertical conveyor belt. I think it's going to work a little bit easier. I totally forget that thing exists sometimes. All right, but this is going to be connected down here. And underneath this block, yes. So right here is a smart chute. And so down here, we should have our other smart chute. And I'm just going to link them all to that area. So underneath here, it's going to look like a conveyor belt mess, but everything should all lead up into that item vault, and this should only be honeycombs. So now essentially what should happen is we should have honeycombs that get built up in there, and the honeycombs get dropped in here. Let's see, honey, we can go ahead and take those, drop them in just like that. They should make their way into the item vault just like so. Perfect. And in the honey vault they go, and inside of the contraption they end up. And you can see right here, we have 37 inside of that contraption. And over here we have 3 buckets of honey filling this. Pretty darn cool. And so now we can use this station. It'll come here, it'll fill up with these ingredients, and then we need to create a place back at the base that unloads these things. So now that I've got the train back at the base, this is where I've got to do a bit more sort of problem solving, right? I've got to also do the exact same thing we just did in the last area, but I need to use this to pull the fluids out and pull the materials out, which we're basically going to be doing like the exact opposite. However, it is going to be pretty straightforward as far as like transferring the items wherever we want them to go. I can have these stored in an item vault and then connect up the item vault and so on and so forth, and manage those items from here. But I'm basically going to have it go through our wall. I think that's going to actually work quite well. So we can use an interface just like this. And I'm also going to need another train station. And this train station, this one in particular, is going to be our new unloading station. And if I remember from the other area, we'll have this one facing this way. And this also makes sure that our direction of the train is rotating in the way that I want it to. And so that is successfully bound, and we can call this Home Depot. It's kind of funny, but no, but seriously, this is going to be home deposit. We're basically going to be depositing our resources right here. And so just to make sure that everything's aligned up, I'm going to realign my train with that station, something that I've just learned to do. There we go, to make sure everything is correct in the way that I want this to be aligned. And let's see. This does appear to be just like I wanted. Basically, I want this to be aligned perfectly with that that shaft right there that's going up the tower. And then up top is where I want to store my honey. So I basically want to pipe my honey all the way up to the top of the tower and put it inside of a tank, just like we have our lava. So just like this, there we go. We now have ourselves another immersive fluid tank, just like the one over here. And I have my piping set up, and we should be able to start getting this, hopefully, into our system on the top. Let's see. I should be able to, it's probably easier if I just pipe to the top here and then figure out a route. Yeah, out like this. And I also have added my pumps, so I've just got to power those pumps. Now, I just got everything set up. It is pumping very, very slow, but it still should be pumping unless I didn't get everything set up correctly. I do have to check. Let's see. Let's go ahead and get a visual on this. We may... Yep, it is pumping. It is just very slow. So yes, this is a nice little visual right here, kind of indicating that this is pulling after getting all of the piping sort of set up. This is the hard part. I think using create pipes, like I said, is probably one of the hardest parts about transferring things around. But yes, this should fill everything up. Assuming that I did do all of the spacing correctly, I should start to see particles eventually making their way up here. And I can go down here and I can follow this trail. Yeah, so you can see the little particles. There's some particles right here, it looks like. Yep, so perfect. We have some fluid there. We should hopefully be getting some fluid wrapping around this, because we have a 16 block gap between all of these. And so, like I said, if everything flowed correctly, it should be working its way down here. And perfect. There we go. So we have the fluid going in, and so we should also potentially start to see fluid making its way into this. Perfect. Oh, that is just what I want to see. And before I know it, there we go. We now have honey flowing into this. So as far as the items are concerned, what I want to do with the items is I basically am going to have a chute that is going to send the items down, and then I can go ahead and kind of hide this a little bit by utilizing my belts here. And I can go ahead and use a brass funnel to pull directly out, believe it or not, directly out of the side of our chute. So this is another method that you can actually use to get items moving about. And then I'm going to route that down. It should just simply drop right down, just like here. And then I can just continue to run the items all the way down through. So after all of that done, my conveyor belt looks like it should be good. And then I have that routed up inside of an item vault that's on the side of my building here, which will then dispense out the honeycombs, which I think is going to be pretty nice. And this should be able to store quite a bit of honeycombs. Now, essentially, to see this in action, all I have to do is simply place this here, and then that is going to split 16 at a time, which is going to be exactly what we need. And we should be able to see those items popping up into existence. I also, by the way, want to do some scaffolding. And I'm going to place scaffolding basically right here. And so we should see that pop right up and boop, there it is. So perfect. And then you can see right here, it's now dispensing our honeycombs. And so now just when you think you're done, you're not. You still have to set up the train schedule. So that's what we need to do. And we also need to go ahead and disassemble our train right now. So by the way, disassembling your train doesn't change the amount of stuff that's stored inside of the inventories or anything like that. So you should be good. Now, what I want to do is do a blaze burner. So I'm going to use a blaze burner. I'm going to replace my seat right here with the blaze burner. And by doing this, we now have ourselves a conductor. This is probably the easiest way to set up a conductor, but you could use a lead and you could grab a mob from nearby and you could lead it onto that the seat, and it just teleports it right to a seat. And I think this works in general for seats. If you wanted to get a mob to it, you would lead it, and then you would just simply click the lead onto the seat, and it teleports right there. But this right here, now that we have this guy in, we should be able to build this, and now we have ourselves a train conductor, and the blaze should, hopefully, once we give it a schedule, take on the conductor uniform, which is kind of cool. So, the schedule, let's pull that out and let's start to configure this because it is kind of an interesting thing. The train schedule is where you control all of the logistics of your train. So let's go ahead and first tell our train what to do. The first thing we want it to do is we want it to travel to a station. Now there's a ton of other things you can play around with, but the most common thing you're going to use is just the travel to station. And then you're going to select the station. So right now we have our track station, and we also have our depot, and we have bees. I want it to travel to our B location. Once it gets to the B location, there's some conditions. We want it to either wait, or you can actually change this to some other condition. And there are tons of them. And this is where the logistics really start to come into play. Because you can go, okay, whenever there's so many of this blank item, which has a filter slot, by the way, you can have it say, when it receives that many, go ahead and leave. And whenever it completes that condition, you're good. Now, typically, the wait is typically fine. You can just set it to wait like 30 seconds at that place and then go ahead and head on. For this particular case, I am going to say, okay, let's go ahead and have it go on that time. So we can go ahead and schedule delay. And let's see, or we can actually do cargo inactivity. That's usually a pretty good one. So cargo inactivity will basically say, hey, if our inventory isn't receiving or sending items for 5 seconds, then you can go ahead and leave. And this is probably the best from going to this position. And then I think I'm going to do the same for this one as well. So we're going to travel to station. This is going to be traveling back to our home station. And I'm going to set that. And the same condition for this. I'm just going to say, hey, wait for the cargo to have inactivity, except this time I'm going to increase it a little bit. Actually, you know what? Let's say on this one, let's actually not do cargo inactivity. Let's do fluid cargo condition. So our items are going to be pretty quick at leaving, but our fluid, we can say to basically exactly 0 buckets in our inventory. And then once it has achieved exactly 0 buckets of the fluid, which we should be able to drag, for example, let's see, honey. We should be able to drag like honey into that slot, a honey bucket. So as soon as there are no more honey in here, then it should leave. Should leave. So that's our condition. You can also set more than one condition. Now it's by default set to loop forever. So it's going to loop these conditions. So it's going to go here. It's going to do this thing. It's going to go here. It's going to do this thing. And that's pretty much it. So as soon as I give this blaze burner this schedule, making sure that our train is assembled. By the way, we should be able to name our train. And we'll just call it, what should we call it? Main train. The main train. I'll come up with a clever name eventually, I'm sure. But for right now, I just want to get this going. So let's pop on here and let's hand it the schedule. And now it's ready to go. And so, yeah, we are on the train, which is not what I want. I want to get out. Let me out. It's going to take me into the Nether. or not. Actually, so you see right there, it just went in the Nether. So our train should hopefully be arriving at our other location. Now I did chunk load this, and this is where the chunk loading actually matters. So let's head over to the bees, and we will see that our train should show up over here shortly. It does actually take time. Oh, and it's already here. So yes, you can see how quickly it actually went over here. And so now it's collecting the honey. It should be collecting the items that it generated over this time. Looks like 48 honeycombs. And then as soon as it's done, as soon as it has that cargo inactivity, like I'd mentioned, as soon as all this honey is gone, that is when this train is going to take off. It's going to loop back around, and it's going to head right back to that same location, and it's going to dump the contents. Oh, this is so exciting. Perfect. Right now, the train is departing. The cargo has been completely finished. Oh, it's so gorgeous watching it run. And it will make its way into the portal here. Oh, that's so beautiful. And now we should be able to teleport back. And notice it didn't take very much time at all for that to happen. And so I'm just going to wait for this to finish up my tim pad, and then I should be able to teleport back home. So now that I'm back home, looky there. There's our train. And this is going to continue on this looping journey for as long as I want it to, or until I modify that schedule, because I can always pull the schedule out and change the schedule to do kind of whatever I want it to do. And so if I want to add more sections to this, of course I can do that, and we can tell it to do all kinds of different stuff. So I'm pretty excited about that, and this train is gorgeous. Now, I did include a seat for myself to potentially ride on, but I don't know if this will actually take me through the portal or not. Yeah, that's something to keep in mind. It might allow me to simply travel straight through there, but I'm not quite sure. I have never done this before. Also, I just realized I should probably add another condition to this guy right here. So later on, eventually this will fill with honey. So we can actually add another alternate condition, and we can say cargo inactivity, and let's just say, make sure that cargo inactivity is like 30 seconds. And so we can add that as an alternative condition. So if this never goes, we can have this one work. At least I think that should work. Now the cargo should not be inactive. Oh no, I wanted to ride. Hold on, let me out. It's going to do it again. It's going to kick me out. Oh, and I couldn't click on the seat fast enough. Darn it. I guess I'll get to try it from this side. So this should actually go quite quickly because it is going to wait for the inactivity. And because there was nothing really here for it, we're going to loop around. And let's see, with me riding on the seat, will it take me through the portal? It's trial and error here. It does. Do I stay seated? I do. Oh, this is perfect. So it's a nice little cargo passenger train. I feel like I'm sort of riding on here illegally, however. It just feels like I'm sort of tagging along when I shouldn't. But yeah, this will teleport me right to the base. Oh, that's nifty. And there we go. So yeah, now I have a ride back and forth over 3,000 blocks basically that this is teleporting to or traveling to. And so long as your like stations or stuff are chunk loaded, it should just be super smooth. And here we are again. Dropping off resources. Oh, I love this. So guys, with that, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hopefully you learned something new about the logistics of trains. There is a ton to play with, and if you've never really done it, I highly recommend trying it out because it is definitely a process and it's a fun one at that. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and give this video a huge thumbs up. Thank you guys so very much for watching, and it's now time to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that amazing thanks is going to go out to Truck Boy. Thank you so much for your amazing support, by the way, over on the Discord and becoming a Discord premium member and supporting in one of the best ways possible and absolutely going above and beyond. Thank you so very much. And guys, if you're looking to join the Discord, discord.gg/ChosenArchitect, join the amazing crew today over there. And also while you're at it, check out my Twitch. All linked down in the description below. I do stream 3 days a week, and I would love to see you and hang out with you over there live. Thank you so much as well. And guys, as always, it's time for me to chug-a-lug along, and I'll see you in the next one. And as always, thanks for watching. Bye!